Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spent a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal Towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path, because every trail has a story, and this one's ours.
All right, I am Adam Lowe.
And I'm Chris Earl. Hey, Adam, as this last Sunday, we all met and got together for the Fire on the Mountain 25 and 50K trail race out in Greenbrier State Forest. You want to tell us a little bit about the race?
Sure thing. It's a little edit there. It's Green Ridge State Forest.
Green Ridge, not Greenbrier.
No worries. I'm glad you didn't go to Greenbrier.
The blooper reel's going to be full tonight.
We got it good. No, but it was a very exciting weekend for us. Starting Friday, my buddy Luke and I went up and marked the course Friday afternoon into the evening, and then went back Saturday morning first thing and finished everything up. So the course was ready for the runners on Sunday morning. And what a fantastic weather day we were blessed with. The weather was just perfect to run in. The sunrise was absolutely beautiful coming up on the mountain there over the Point Lookout overlook. So everything was falling into place. Everything was perfect. Talking about some of the actual races, the 25K first, I'll start there with the guys. Timmy Parr came from Colorado. He used to run professionally for Hoka, and the previous course record was 2 hours and 7 minutes, held by our good buddy Ethan Connolly. And Timmy came and ran a 1:57:46, so about 10 minutes under that course record from before. So when he figured he'd be around 2 hours, and he surpassed that by 3 minutes, and I was shocked but ready to see him coming to the finish line. That was pretty awesome. And then second and third place were brothers Kevin and Eric Barno, 23 and 27 years old. One ran 2:08:01, the other was 2:08:13. Both of those times were right around the course record. So 3 of the 4 fastest times for the guys' side was set on Sunday. So the course was very fast. And actually, let's see, 4 of the top 10 times were set for the guys in the 25K. For the females, Amy Busseler was first place female, 2:39:06. She was just 2 minutes off the course record set by a local runner here, Yana, who ran 2:37 a couple of years ago. And there were, let's see, 3 of the top 10 fastest time. Lindsey Hahn ran 2:43 for second place, and then Carissa, you know how to say her last, Schneider, is that right?
Schneider.
Yeah, 250. So top 3 females, again, were very fast in 3 of the top 10 times overall. So if you ran the 25K, we'll get into that here in just a second, your experience out there. But the 25K is really about 16 and a half miles. A true 25K is 15.5. With the 25K here, it is about 9 miles on road, and then the rest of it is trail. The red trail is not easy, but people do look forward to getting off of it. That's for sure. You get on it, you're excited, you're finally off the road, and then you're on the trail, and the first thing you do is you wish you were back on the road. So it's a challenging course, to say the least. So to see someone run it in 1:57 is pretty crazy to me. That's a blazing fast time. That's why it's the course record by 10 minutes. So that was very impressive on the 25K side. On the 50K side, I feel like a broken record saying that our buddy Samir won another Tulo event, but he won the 50K running a 5:06, 5 hours, 5 minutes and 25 seconds. Just a few minutes outside of being a top 10 overall time. But he did go out in the first half and ran 2 hours and 22 minutes, which is blazing for the first half of the race. So he was being chased by two other guys, Dylan Hunter and Chad Miner. They both, one ran 5:07:26, the other ran 5:13:18. So in years past, those times would have won the race. The winning female was Maeve Thistle, and she is a 24-year-old from Pennsylvania, and she ran 5:15:52, which is the female course record by 14 minutes. And that course record was established 15 years ago. Yeah, so she was flying, and the I'm trying to think, looking on here, I think on the new course that we run now, the course record would have been 5:51. So she beat that by over 30 minutes. Which, if you've ever been on the Red Trail in Green Ridge State Forest, you know that a 5:15, there's years that would have won the race overall. She just would have won first place outright. So very impressive on the female side. And that got me thinking, how long before we see a female break 5 hours, which that would be pretty exciting. That would put them in the top 10 of men's performances overall. So I think that's coming. That'll be around the corner soon. Real quick, the most exciting part for me for Fire on the Mountain is when people come back to the finish line. About 100 meters from the finish line, they get a log, and they carry that log 100 meters to the fire. And when they throw that log on the fire, that stops their finish time. So it's not like a traditional finish line where you go under the arch or past the cone and you're done. You throw a log on the fire, and that ends your race. And as soon as people drop the log on there, we give them their medal. We tell them where the refreshments are and what they, what they need to do. And then I usually ask them how they liked it, how the race went, what their favorite part was. And usually a few people will cuss at me and say they hated the mountains, or they have a few choice words for me. But in talking to people, I had Katie, who was there recording some finish times for me. I had to write down some of my favorite quotes from the weekend. So I just want to go over those real quick, and then Chris will get into your story about the race here. So Luke, which he was bib number 145, he said at one point that he felt like he was in the Lord of the Rings. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then he said he once ran a race in South Africa, and there were lions like on the course that were just roaming free. And he said he felt safer then than he did at Fire on the Mountain. So I thought that was pretty cool. We definitely don't hide the fact that the course is challenging, right? It's a very difficult trail to run on, but it's obviously very runnable. You can see some of the times that we have, but if you're not an experienced trail runner, it can be kind of scary for some people. We had a guy, Jeff, who ran the 25K, and at mile 11, he said, I almost lost my sense of humor. I thought that was pretty funny to say that. That was pretty good. Ethan Connolly, who ran and had the course record last year, he won last year. This year, he came back and ran with his girlfriend the entire time for the 25K. They ran together. And his quote at the end was, "This was not good for our relationship." So I thought that was pretty good. And then bib number 51, that's all I got here. I don't have his name. He just said mistakes were made. And he was talking about like when he signed up for the race. So I thought that was pretty good as well. The last quote I'll share is from my neighbor Micah, who I kind of gave a hard time to before the race because he lost his bib about 30 seconds after getting it. But I talked to him today, and when one thing he said was pretty cool to me. He said, like, he's the first person in his family to do something like this, like a trail race, something this difficult. And he's just looking forward to passing that on to his kids. And hopefully he's talking about doing lock to lock or Buzz Sawyer or a race like that. But I thought it was pretty cool that he went back and thought that much about, hey, this is the hardest thing maybe anybody in my family has done athletically. So that's my favorite part about putting these races on.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember on Sunday when he finished, he was like, "I'm never doing this again," and we said, "Yes, you will. Give it a
Yeah.
day."
And then he told me, because he ran with his buddy the whole time, and he said he's already texted his buddy saying, "Hey man, what are we gonna do next?" And his buddy texted him back and told him to leave him alone. So pretty cool. But
That's fantastic.
yeah. All right, Chris, why don't you go ahead and walk us through a little bit about your experience on Sunday? How was the race for you? How did it shape up out there? And how'd you feel?
Yeah, so my favorite part of, I think, Fire on the Mountain is actually before the race even starts. Everybody shows up nice and early. You get that extra hour of sleep because of the time change, but it's still early and it's dark and it's usually a little bit chilly. But then you walk over to the overlook where the start happens, and as the sun starts to crest the ridgeline there, you quickly understand why it's called Fire in the Mountain. I mean, there is just something special about that sunrise, the fog laying over top of the river, and the different colors that you get in the sky as the sun's coming up. I mean, it's just awesome. And everybody is there with their phones out, trying to capture that image of, you know, the beauty there before we all get into the race. Once the race started, I this year, being that the first 7-ish miles are on the road, I decided I was going to take it a little conservative the first mile and not try to chase the people who were going to go out super hard and hope that I would reel them in once we got on the trail. So I did a pretty good job. I made it down to the turnaround and made it back. And I remembered from years past that when you are on the road there and you hit that one real steep section on the road, that I had walked most of that hill. And so I had it in my head. I would just get there, I'd walk a little bit. As I got there, a couple of runners came up beside me and they started chatting with me, and they didn't walk. So if I wanted to keep talking with them, I had to pick it up and go with them. And, fortunately, it was fine. We made it up to the top, and then you get onto the other side and you start rolling down the hill, and it was just it was a lot of fun to be out there in the woods, but have that fast dirt road surface that you could still run almost like it was a road race. So I really enjoyed that. Made those first 7 miles go pretty quickly. But then, like you said, about the time you're ready to get back to the red trail, you're ready to get in the woods and start the real part of the race. And as you know, on the 25K, when you come in there at aid station 2, you're joining the red trail right where the red and blue kind of overlap a little bit. And that gets me every time because you have beat it into my head. Do not run on the blue trail. And in that first, I'm not even sure how far it is, maybe quarter to half a mile, the trails overlap there. And so you see red blaze and then you see blue blaze, and it gives me pause every time. But I had no issues when we got to the split where the blue goes off to the left and the red goes right. The team between you and Luke did a fantastic job of marking the course this year. There really was nowhere where I had to even think about where to go next. Cruised on through those first couple of trail miles. You hit that first hill, and that's the first real climb after the red trail splits off. And I made it up to the top of that without too many issues, and then rolled on down the other side. But I think I know exactly where the gentleman you were quoting said that he about lost his sense of humor or started questioning his decisions, because there's the section we all affectionately refer to as the Billy Goat Trail, where you're literally on that steep side hill. The path is about 8 to 10 inches wide
Yep.
and cambered down. And it's a test of your will to trust your footing to run there and not slow down to a walk. And then that's complicated by the fact that at about that time, you're starting to catch the 50K runners who are coming from the opposite direction. And so then you got to figure out who's going to move to the side, or make sure you both don't go the same direction, those kinds of things. So everybody was fantastic on the trail. Nobody seemed upset that they had to yield, or that you didn't yield the right way or anything like that. So I think we were all just making sure we didn't fall and end up sliding down into the creek down there. But after you get through that section, then you have a little bit of run down by the creek, and then you have the true test, which is the climb up the mountain on the red trail there. And it's so, even though, right, that when you get to the top of that first ascent, the trail's going to turn, you're still hoping that you're there. But there's, I think I counted at least 4 false tops as you're going up
Yep.
through there. But, for me, it's just left foot, right foot, head down, just keep moving. Try not to slow any more than you have to. It's obviously a power hike for me, and you just keep hoping, look up every once in a while to see how close you are to finally making it to the top to where you can start rolling down the other side.
Probably avoid
After
avoid looking at your watch if it's telling you pace per mile, right? That's the ultimate deflator.
Absolutely. From doing one of the training runs I had last time, that it was during the training run, it took me about 9.5 minutes from the creek to where I crested the top of the hill. So I had that kind of in my mind, looked at my watch when I started, but then as I was getting to the top, I tried not to pay attention to it, but until I got to the very top. And I was pretty happy. I ended up running it in just under 8 minutes, or climbing it in under 8 minutes this time. So I had improved. I think when I got back and looked at my Strava segment, it was a PR for me. So can't be unhappy with that. So,
Right.
and then from there, it's just a matter of getting through the woods. There's one last climb up to the road. I think you know that segment. It's that people have affectionately referred to as Y Adam on Strava. I definitely at one point said that out loud as I was power hiking up to the road. But then, like you said, once you get to the road, you've got just over a mile to go, and it's nothing but just gut it out and run. When I came out of the woods, I had 2 fellow runners that were just far enough ahead of me that they gave me hope I could track them down, but the gap was just a little bit too big. And, you know, when I would see them walking up ahead, I would be like, okay, I'm starting to get excited. Maybe I will run them down. But they had run really strong races and saved just enough energy that as I got closer, they would pick it up. And I think the 3 of us finished within a minute of each other for sure, but maybe even 30 seconds. So, all in all, a really good day. Was really happy to be able to drop that log on the fire and then just hang out and celebrate the day with everybody else who to get through the 25 and 50K.
Yeah, you finished 12th overall, and 10th and 11th place were 25 seconds. 10th, 11th, and 12th place were 25
Yeah,
seconds. So maybe if we would have given those guys a bigger log to carry the last 100 meters, you could have caught them.
maybe
Hey, so
make them 400 meters.
that's right. Before we go any further, I do want to talk about the Campbell family, who their dad, Jim, has been running Fire on the Mountain for 7 years. So longer than I've actually been at the helm of Fire on the Mountain. But I think each one of his kids have held the record for the youngest participant at the race. And it was a complete family affair for them on Sunday. Elijah and his newlywed wife, Urza, were at one of the aid stations volunteering. Elijah has run the race before and he's volunteered a few times with me at the finish line. But he had his brothers and sisters running the 25K all with dad. So Simeon's 11, Bo is 9. So now Bo has the new record for the youngest finisher of the 25K. And then Hannah and Grace all ran. So Grace set a 30-minute PR in the 25K. She is, let's see, what she's 21 now. Hannah's 13, and she set a 50-minute PR, and she's only 13 years old, right? Simeon's 11, and he ran 3 hours and 46 minutes. And Bo is 9 and ran 3 hours and 54 minutes. And it was a true testament for the kids in there and their dad. And it's awesome to see them out there as a family and getting it done. When Simeon came across the finish line and he was by himself and didn't even look like he broke a sweat, kind of asked him, "Where's the rest of the family?" And he said, "I don't know, back there somewhere." He took off and left the family when they got off the red trail for the first time. So he ran the last 6 miles or so by himself. So at that moment, I knew the course was well marked enough that an 11-year-old could make it through without getting lost. Then we were in good shape. No one else should get lost if they're making it through. But that whole crew is amazing, and I look forward to seeing them every year at Fire on the Mountain. And then the last shout outs I want to give are to all the volunteers that we had. Without them, the race becomes a lot harder, right? So we have 3 manned aid stations and 1 unmanned aid station where we just put water out there, but we still have to get the water out there. And Mike and Megan took the water out there that morning, and then they also swept the course for me to make sure that there was no trash left behind. They got all the markings that we had out there. John Duffy and Mitch took photos for everybody, so those will be out later today. Kevin Peterson and his son Wyatt worked the Oasis with Mike and Megan, and then Donald, Alicia, Elijah, and Tazar worked the one of the aid stations, and they had like a Hawaiian theme, and they all wore Hawaiian shirts and kind of made it a big party out there. And then Luke Taylor, Steve, and Randy worked the other aid station and took care of aid station 2 and took care of all the runners. So, and then Amy Axine, she ran the race, and then afterwards, her and her husband stuck around and passed out firewood to everybody for me to take that weight off of my shoulders. And then Katie helped record splits at the end. So it's a huge team effort for everyone to come out there and give up their Saturdays and help out and just be out there cheering for people to run and making sure they're safe and giving people rides back to where they need to go. So huge shout out to all the volunteers. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have a race. So if you ran Fire on the Mountain this year and you said never again, all right, then we expect you to come back and volunteer, right? If you, we always need help. So don't exclude that from your race category next year if you need to come out or you want to come out and help out. We really appreciate all those individuals came out and helped out. All right. So, along with Fire on the Mountain today, we had an idea that through some of these episodes, we'll allow you to get to know, I guess, each of us. So, Chris, it's your turn tonight. So, I have some questions for you. All right. And we will allow our listeners to get to know the real Chris Earl. Are you good with that?
That sounds great. Let's do it.
All right. So let's go ahead and start back, not all the way at the beginning, but at the beginning here. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about where you grew up, maybe family life, brothers and sisters, and where you lived and how little how your childhood was.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a small town, Pennsylvania. It was my parents and my brother and I, and my brother's a couple years younger than me. Typical rural farm family life. Just, get up early, work those chores, and then get on with your day. That, being a small town Pennsylvania boy, there were 3 sports everybody did: football, basketball, and baseball. And that was pretty much my life through most of my early childhood. I couldn't wait to play high school football for the local team, right? That's where all the glory was. And so as a ninth grader, when I finally was old enough to go out for JV football, I made the team, but I was 5'10" and 100 and maybe 35 pounds. So not exactly a linebacker. So I didn't see a lot of playing time that year. And you do all the hard work of practice and going out and getting beat up by the bigger and stronger kids every day just to be a tackling dummy. I wasn't real excited about going back out for football after that, but our high school cross country team had a just fantastic season. They went, I think, 10-1, just missed winning the league championship, and there was a lot of excitement in the community around that. And I had always enjoyed being out in the woods and on the trail, so I thought, well, maybe I'll go out for cross country as a sophomore. And one of my best friends, Greg, he also went out decided he was going to do the same thing. And so we went out and joined the team, and neither of us had ever really run before and didn't know what to expect. But we showed up at practice and just kind of put in our time and slowly but surely worked our way into the top 7 on that team, and the fantastic season they'd had before where they went 10-1, we ended up actually going undefeated, took second in our district meet, and we're the first team in like 20 or 30 years for our high school to go to the state meet. And from there, absolutely hooked. As a junior, going into my junior season that summer, I just committed to I was going to get myself in really good shape. Ended up getting into a position where I was battling for number 2 and number 3 on the team through the whole season. Again, undefeated season. We ended up going to states again. We went from finishing 20th in the state as my sophomore year to I think we were, or something like that, my sophomore year or junior year. And so we all doubled down and really dedicated ourselves for our senior year. And we're fortunate enough to run the table again, go undefeated, win our 3rd league championship, and ended up finishing 5th in the state, which was just for us as a small school and a lot of us not really knowing anything about cross country 3 years ago. We were all pretty proud of that. And I still talk to some of the guys on that team. My buddy Greg and I are still Strava friends. We're checking in on each other every day. Just great relationships we built with those guys and established running for me.
Nice. So obviously, as a 10th, 11th, and 12th grader, you were running. Did you go on to run in college?
So I did. That was one of my goals going into my senior year, was to get a school interested enough in me. And I had a little bit of interest at mostly at the Division 2 level. I had 1 or 2 Division 1 schools who reached out, but then they quickly disappeared. I was definitely not Division 1 talent, but I ended up selecting Bloomsburg University, which was one of the state schools, mid-sized state schools in Pennsylvania. If anybody's familiar with the PSAC, there are about 14 schools in that conference, very competitive for distance running, end up sending a lot of people to nationals at the end of the season every year. And so as a freshman, I went out for the team at Bloomsburg. Again, worked hard, worked my way up into the top 7, but I was also a chemistry major. And first season went pretty okay. I was able to manage my course load, but after that, in the spring when I should have been going out for track, I had 3 laboratories that I had to take, and they were always, of course, in the afternoon, and I just couldn't commit to only showing up for practice 2 days a week on a distance team that was going to be nationally competitive. So that pretty much ended my scholastic running career at that point. I certainly won't blame this on her, but shortly after that, I met my wife Megan, and we did what happens to a lot of people. We got fat and happy because we were happy. And so running just kind of faded into the background. And for a few years, I really wasn't running at all. I might go out once or twice a semester, right, to just blow off some steam or just to enjoy the spring weather. But I kind of got away from it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years probably. But my return to running story, I also can blame on Megan. I remember it was the fall of 96, I believe. Megan and I, it was just before we got married, and her father came to town to visit us. Her dad was a run streaker. He, at that point, his running streak was 8 or 9 years at that point. Now, he wasn't doing a ton of miles, but he was at least going out and getting that 1 mile every day. And he's like, come on, let's go for a run. And of course, I'm like, yeah, of course I can run with this old guy, whatever. And turns out I could not. I was pretty embarrassed with how out of shape I was. And I said, okay, I got to get myself back in shape because I can't have my future father in law showing me up and mocking me about how slow I am. So that was sort of my introduction back into running after taking a couple of years off.
Okay, you said that was 1996.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
1996 was when
About that.
I
Yeah.
decided to get back off the couch. Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're up to 96, and you're back into running. How often? Like once a week, twice a week when you first started, or did you jump right back
It,
into the deep end?
oh no, I definitely did not jump in the deep end. it was a couple times a week for the next couple of years, just enough to try to get myself back into shape. After I got out of graduate school at the University of Virginia, I took a job coaching or teaching, but that led to coaching high school track down in the Richmond area. And as a coach, you want to be able to, I felt pretty strongly I needed to be in shape to be able to at least demonstrate what the kids needed to do if need be. So I was running pretty regularly then, 4 or 5 times a week. But one of my assistants at that time mentioned that he was going to do the Richmond Marathon. And I was like, wait, what? Like, normal people run marathons? I thought that was just like a super elite thing, right? He's like, no, like, you should think about signing up. And I'm like, oh, no, I couldn't do that. But then after he did it, I was like, well, I mean, and no offense to him, like, but he's just normal like me. Like, if he can run a marathon, maybe I can too. So that was when I really got serious about getting back into running and signed up for the 1999 Richmond Marathon and decided that I was going to use a Runner's World training program. Back then, the internet was just barely a thing, so I probably didn't even use like an internet plan. I probably was actually looking at the magazine and some published 16-week plan,
Right, right.
running all by myself with no nutrition, no hydration, all the right things to do.
The exact same way that most of us learned how to do it, right? Just no idea what you're doing. Just throw something at the wall and see what works, right? See what sticks.
Y-
So
Yep.
yeah, I did the same thing. Let me ask you this. So obviously, like now, well, I don't want to jump forward or anything, but like the races that you're doing now, there's obviously a drive that comes from somewhere. And listening to you talk, like when you were a sophomore and you went out for the team and, you know, kind of probably fed off the other guys around you a little bit. And then, realized, oh, wait, if I come back or if I work hard in the summer and I come back and I'm in better shape, I can go up to number two on the team. And then maybe if I work even harder that summer, I can come back and possibly get a scholarship, right? So there's a drive there. Where does that drive that you had then and then that you have now, where'd that come from? Do you know?
So it turns out I'm pretty competitive. It really doesn't matter what I'm doing. I've got my competitive streak runs pretty deep. Certainly back then in high school, that competitiveness being fed by the success the team was having and that I was having as I was moving up through, that just compounded it, right? And I just continued to feed off it. It for me, it's almost like an addiction or a drug, right? Like I crave that doing better, and then the more success I have, the more I want it. So I think that's probably the main source of it for me. I also, as I got older and as we were raising our two daughters, just setting a good example for my kids, right? Showing them that you can do hard things and it's okay to go out and put yourself through a little bit of suffering to get what you want. And it's also okay when it doesn't work and you fail and come up a little bit short. So, those are all things that I think are really important for me and for why I do what I do with running.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest way that we learn is by failing, by trying something. I can't tell you how many goals I set January 1st. I set all these goals for running, and I think I fail at 90% of them. And it's not because they're like I'm not trying, it's because they're so out there, some of them, and like I just can't. I I real like I'll give you a perfect example. This year I set an elevation challenge for myself to get like 200,000 feet of elevation, and I run on the canal every day. I get 9 feet of gain. So obviously I'm not going to do that, but I'm like, that sounds like a cool goal. So I get it exactly. I think putting yourself out there and learning from that stuff, that those are good, valuable lessons to have without a doubt. Do you run streak? And what was your longest run streak you've had?
Yeah. So back in 2009, I was working for a company and we had a pretty good group of guys that I was running with, but there were definitely times where like our schedules wouldn't link up. And so, like, if one guy bailed on running, then I might bail on running, those kind of things. We were holding each other accountable, but when we weren't there, maybe we weren't as committed as we needed to be. And I was kind of getting frustrated with I would take a day off that would turn into 4 or 5 days off, and then you get that feeling when you go back out on that 6th day like, "Oh man, I'm starting over from scratch," even though you're not, but it feels that way, right? So I decided that I was going to run every day. I had seen something on the internet about these people who run streak 1 mile, at least 1 mile a day for 365 days for a year. And I was like, well, I can do that. But that, if I set that goal, then I'm probably going to stop at the year mark. So I decided I was going to do 1,000 days in a row. And that sounds like an outlandish number. And I was like, that's what I need. I need that kind of long-term goal to really force myself to go out and do it. And over the course of that, I stuck with it. I at one point got the swine flu, if you remember when that went through. I remember being out of work, sick as a dog, laying on the couch, and when it came time to like, oh, I'm running out of daylight, I would throw down a couple of Advil, wait for my fever to go down a little bit, go out, run a just barely 10-minute mile, and then get back and crash on the couch. I did that a couple of days, but kept it going. Glad I did. And that run streak actually ended up going for 4 years and 4 days. And it ended up breaking when I had to go on a work trip to Amman, Jordan. And when we landed, I had about 5 hours of sleep because of the time change that I could get. And then I was going to get up and get a mile in so that I keep the streak going. And I completely slept through every alarm I had.
Right.
And so the streak ended up breaking at that point.
Gosh. Are you currently streaking now?
I am at day 141 of my current
Okay.
streak. Over the summer, I had a streak that was up into the 200s as far as days go, but I got that nasty COVID virus and lost a couple of days. So
Yeah.
once that cleared up, I got back in and started again. But yeah, it became a lifestyle for me after that
Right.
1,000 days of running, and now it's just I use it to keep myself going because I know if I take 2 days off, it's easy to take 3, it's easy to take 4, and I like to it's good for me mentally to get out there every day, and then my family has just come to expect it, right? They know that no matter what, I'm gonna run at some point during the day, whether it's 4 in the morning or whether it's 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night because I haven't run yet and I gotta keep the streak going, so
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I think it's important for that daily, like, little release of energy. If nothing else, you get kind of just 10 minutes by yourself, and sometimes that's all you get, but that little alone time is good. And also, like you said, hold you accountable. Skip a day, like you said, skip a day turns into a week, and then you're right back at it. Kudos to you for getting over 1,000 and reaching that goal the very first time you said it. That's pretty amazing. And to go from 0 to 1,000 without having anything pop up in the middle there that took place. So I guess I have a question for you, but want to ask a lead-in question to that. So, do you? We talked about you running every day now, and running and going out in your neighborhood and running, and we know that you just ran Fire on the Mountain, and you just ran Marine Corps, and you're going to run JFK. So you obviously enjoy racing, right? And that's probably that competitive aspect you just talked about. Can you maybe pinpoint like one or two of your favorite races you've done, and I guess go through and explain to us what made it your favorite, whether you were trying to outkick a 20-year-old Adamani or what, whatever you whatever you got for us. Let's talk about Chris Earl, the racer.
Yeah. So in my senior year of high school, the first race I'll talk about was our league championship invitational. And going into my senior season, I had been training really hard, and my goal was to be number one on the team, but also number one in the league. And I knew there was one other guy. I'll never forget him. His name was Mike Barton. The first time I ran against him, he showed up at the race, and I think he was wearing high top basketball sneakers, and he kicked my butt. I'm in, what at the time I thought as a 17-year-old were some pretty high tech running shoes, and he shows up in high top sneakers and just crushed me. I had dedicated that I was going to train all summer, and my goal was I was going to beat this guy, right? And I was going to get the league MVP or whatever. Well, we met three times three times up to this race. And the first time was on our home course, and I was so jacked up. I was excited. I was going to go out. I was going to own him on the course. And the gun went off, and I went out like a rabbit. Like I was going to set every PR in the world that day. And sure enough, that is, as we all know, the worst thing you can do in a distance race, right? Because you can't win a race in the first 100 yards, but you can lose it. And I lost it. So he beat me there on my home course, which was at the time as a 17-year-old, pretty embarrassing, right? I had dedicated all this time over the summer, and it didn't work out. We met again mid-season, and this time I went out a little bit smarter and, ran a good race, but he still was the stronger runner that day and beat me, but it was closer. And so I was like, okay, at this point, he's got the MVP wrapped up. He's beat me twice head to head. But at the end of the season, we have the league-wide invitational, and I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to go out and see how the day goes. I'm not putting pressure on myself, and we'll just see how it goes. And we started off that race, and I took a much more conservative approach in the first 400 meters, and he built up a little bit of a lead. But as we were going along and running the race, I was keeping him close enough that I knew that I could still make a move to get him. I noticed he kept looking back over his shoulder to see how close I was. And I was like, oh, he's tired. Oh, he's tired. And then that was all I needed, right? And so I just slowly, like every time he looked over his shoulder, it gave me a little more energy, and I would close the gap a little bit more. And the way the race finished was you came up and you ran the last 300 meters on the track. So you basically came in at one straightaway, ran the length of the straightaway, hit the corner, and finished at the end of the other straightaway. And when we got onto the track, I was able to get the angle on him and cut inside of him. And so when we hit the track, we literally were stride for stride. And so I had closed that gap. We're stride for stride. And it's just an all out 17-year-olds sprinting as hard as they can for 300 meters. Elbows are banging, and it's the league invitational. So parents and fans and everything were there from the entire league, and the bleachers, like when we went stride for stride, just erupted, right? Like that was so exciting. And I think, as I mentioned last week, I think I feed off the crowd energy. Stride for stride, we're all the way around the track, and with literally 2 strides to go, he flinched, and that was all I needed. I beat him by less than a second. So that was, for me, probably one of my all-time favorite races, just because it was so exciting, but it also was like just a total gut check for me to not quit.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
it's
Got it.
to not quit, but also to show up with like he's already beaten you twice that year, and it's very easy, especially as a 17-year-old, to show up and just think, "Oh, I got no chance." Like, why am I even here today? So just to show up and with to have that confidence that okay, I'm gonna run my race, and then as soon as you saw that key mistake he made of looking behind him, to have that other confidence to go get him, to go after him, That shows a lot of tenacity and a lot of that competitiveness that you have for sure.
And that has stayed with me too. Like even on Sunday during Fire on the Mountain, when we're on the road section, and I knew there was someone behind me, would not look over my shoulder to
Yep,
see how close they were. I'm like,
right.
I'm not giving it to them.
There was probably nobody ever there, Chris. It was just your imagination. All right. What was
Um,
your go ahead.
I was gonna say after that though, I think my favorite races have been some of the trail races that I've gotten into since joining the Tulo run group. Last miles, last one standing that you co-race direct with Lauren. That race is just so much fun. The 4 miles, and like you said last week, it just ends up being a new race every 4 miles. I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun for pushing your limits. Highland Sky, running that for the first time with all the varied terrain. And then, of course, JFK. I can't wait to get back and run that again here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and we will definitely have a Highland Sky podcast. And we'll definitely have to have their biggest supporter, Katie, back for that one as well. That that's a different podcast for a different day for sure. But and I hear the word on the street is that we may be trying to go back this year. And by we I mean you, me, and Jeff and other people and not Katie. So we'll have
Not
to
Katie.
yeah, we'll have to get back on that. But yeah, I think you definitely thrive under those more difficult trail races where you can kind of gut it out and use your competitiveness to give everything that you got out there and just to enjoy it. So, what do you love? You mentioned like running some of the Tulo races, and we'll talk about the Ale Trail running group that you've created in the area. But what do you love or like about the running community, just in general? You just mentioned the last one standing, so go ahead and talk about the running community a little bit.
I think the greatest thing about the local running community here is just how supportive they are. Almost without exception, everybody is out there to support each other. It doesn't matter if you're Samir and the fastest runner and everybody is there and excited for him, all the way to whoever might be the DFL, right? Like we're all hanging out, we're cheering for them, we're excited for the successes that they have. When I first moved to West Virginia, I was a little worried about restarting my running journey with new people. And from the first race I showed up at, the people were super friendly, welcomed me in. And of course, the Tulo pub runs are a staple in my diet now. I just really enjoy hanging out with that group. It's good competitive running while we're doing the first 5K, but then it's good camaraderie afterwards as we hang out and talk about our week or talk about our races and all that. So,
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think you're right. This community that we're in, plus also I think just the running community in general, is very supportive. At Fire the Mountain, at the cutoff time is 10 hours. And then as soon as 10 hours hits, we kind of start cleaning up. We still had two people out on the course, but kind of joking, not joking, there were probably about 20 people still at the finish line. And I made an announcement as soon as the clock hit 10 hours that, hey guys, the race is officially over. So you guys go home, right? And but I said we have two people still left on the course, but we're gonna clean up a little bit. I'm gonna wait around and still give them their medal and tell them great job and way to fight it out and not quit. But the race is over, so you guys can leave if you want. And I don't think one person walked away. All 20, 22 people, whatever it was there, just stayed and waited for those last two runners to finish. So thought that was pretty cool, hanging out, waiting for the last two people to come across the line, even though it was getting late. It was getting dark.
absolutely. I mean, everybody, just was just as excited for them to finish as they were for their own finish. So,
Yeah,
it's
it
it's
was.
it's a great group. It really
Yeah,
is.
agreed. All right. So besides running, do you have any other interests or hobbies that you have?
Oh, so I have two. I do enjoy doing some photography. So a lot of times I'll try to, if I see something cool along the way on a run, I will force myself to stop and not worry about my pace that day so much, but to take a keep few photos and tag them to my Strava or to my Instagram. And then for those who don't know, my other hobby is beer making, which is the start of the or origination of the Ale Trail Runner Instagram account. I do enjoy making homebrew, and some pale ales and IPAs are probably my specialty.
Yeah, and I've had the opportunity to taste some of your home brew beer, and I can honestly say it is very good. So keep that coming. We appreciate the home brew. The pictures you take are pretty good too, but they don't taste as good as the beer. So,
That's
but
right.
yeah. All right. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about Ale Trail running? I know now that the winter is here, looks a little bit different than what it looks like in the spring and summer. But go ahead and plug Ale Trail running a little bit for us.
Sure. So I started back in the spring, just trying to give myself a reason to get up on the eight, get some trail miles in every week. And so I thought, well, as long as I'm up here, maybe some other people would want to join me. So I decided to start Tuesday trail runs and running it through Instagram, social media post through my Instagram handle, Ale Trail Runner. We had a great group of folks who came out. Cloud Splitter Coffee was there just about every week, our good friend Billy. But we had anywhere from, I think, one or two at the low to, I think we had 8 or 9 one time. So it ended up being a good group. Basically just gather at Gathland at 4:30, and we'd pick whether we're going north or south, and everybody would just kind of run as far or as little as they wanted, but it was an excuse to get out there and get some trail miles in. So hopefully that's all going to pay off when JFK rolls out here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, when those trail running meetups happen again on Tuesday, if you are listening and you are going to run JFK in 2026, it would be a great idea for you to get out there and run with some experienced and unexperienced trail runners coming out there. There were people that have run JFK 5 times or more, and there were people that have never run JFK together that were out there running. So pretty cool. Chris, the running community appreciates you dedicating your Tuesdays at 4:30 to getting out there for sure, and making sure that somebody's there to meet with them and guide them a little bit on the eight. So we just we'll get that going back. I think what do you have a plan for that start date, or is that way too early of a question because of the time change?
So yeah, I think I'm gonna wait and see what happens after JFK. Maybe we'll try to get together on some Saturdays if it's warm enough and the trail isn't iced over. I'm lined up for my first 100K in April, so I'm certainly going to need to be doing some trail miles over the winter. So yeah, check in on the Instagram account, Ale Trail Runner, and we'll see when we can organize some ad hoc stuff. Then once it's light enough to get at least an hour in of running, we'll start back up at 4:30s at Gathland.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that was my last and final question for you was I know you have JFK coming up in 2 weeks. And then I know we have a distance challenge that we will get into on another podcast as well, that you and I are a team trying to get as many miles as we can in the month of January. And then you just mentioned the 100K that you have in April. So after JFK, is that the next big goal, the 100K?
Absolutely. That'll be my first attempt at a Western States qualifier. I guess I got to start now if I ever want to have a shot at getting in. I don't think I'll be that guy who gets in on the first lottery on the first time around. So I'm going to start while I can gathering up those lottery entries, and maybe in 5 or 6 years I'll have enough, and by then hopefully enough trail experience that I'll be able to go out there and not embarrass myself.
That's a good goal to start now. All right. Well, what a lot of fun. What a lot of fun this was recapping Fire on the Mountain Trail Race last Sunday and then getting to know you, Chris. So we appreciate your openness to share your background, your story with us today. Hopefully, some runners and some listeners will get a little bit of inspiration from your story and maybe do one of the races that you talked about and maybe start a run streak. Maybe go for try to be a little bit more competitive in a race. Hopefully, they'll be able to pick up something from you. So, again, thank you, Chris, for
Great.
your answers and your openness today.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks for interviewing me.
Of course. All right. Well, that's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the CNO. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing. All right, Chris. Good work, man.
All right. Thanks,
Hey,
man. That was fun.
yeah. Hey, so hopefully people are still listening here, but we are going to do after we talk to a guest, we're going to start a new little, I guess we're going to call it the after party, right? So we're going to start a little segment after the interview where we sometimes when we get done running on the towpath, we sit there and we talk a little bit about whatever we didn't get to talk about during the run. And every once in a while, one of us will bring some Gatorade or Tailwind or some other beverages to drink. So we're going to finish up this episode with me asking Chris some after party questions. And I think we both have a beverage here. So, Chris, what are you drinking during the after party?
Tonight, I have a can of Old Busthead's Caramel Macchiato Stout.
Oh man, you're gonna make so this weekend at Fire on the Mountain, I bought 120 Bud Lights for the runners, and I left with about 50 of them. So tonight I'm drinking a Steelers can of Bud Light.
Nice.
Try get rid of a few of these. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack this open and cheers, Chris.
Cheers to you.
All right. So the after party is we have 9 questions for you, and it's just kind of rapid fire. So just answer 1 or 2 words for each one, and we'll go from there. So, all right, when you go out for a run, you prefer road or trail? Road. All right. You prefer to run in the morning or the evening?
Morning.
All right. Solo or group runs?
Group runs, definitely.
What is your favorite race distance?
The half marathon.
All right. And all right, what do you think is harder? First mile of a run or the last mile of a run?
Oh, first mile for sure.
Okay, you said you like to run in the morning, so this next question is good. Coffee before a run or no coffee?
Always coffee.
Always. All right. Treadmill, you love it or hate it?
Hate it.
All right. The PR that you're most proud of?
Marathon.
Marathon PR?
3:11.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, and that was Marine Corps, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then
Yeah.
last question.
15 years ago. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Last question. Your bucket list race.
I don't know that I really have one, but I guess since I just talked about trying to qualify for Western states, maybe Western states. It seems so far off that I don't know that it's even actually possible, but for now we'll go with Western states.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks, Chris, for joining us on the after party and answering those questions for us. We hope you guys had fun. I promise you that is the official end of the podcast.